Okay, so welcome to this video for COMP3218 Game Design at the University of Southampton. My name is Dave Millard, I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with
Callum Sporforth
and Tom Brown.
So we've asked the students to submit a number of games, and we're going to go over them in this video. Tom, do you want to say a little bit about what we asked them to do?
Absolutely. So for the last coursework, we asked them to create an innovative game prototype. So we asked them to make a small game prototype like before, this time including some innovation in games, whether it's some interesting use of hardware like virtual reality, a location-aware game, or something that uses procedural generation.
Okay, brilliant. So let's have a look at our first game.
So our first game is Potholy, which I think is inspired by Spelunky.
Yes.
Okay,
that's rather nice.
Yeah. Got some nice little music. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I saw this in the expo.
Yeah. So the controls are a little bit odd. We've got infinite double jumps.
So first thing is, you've got the controls up in the left-hand corner.
Yes.
But they don't actually tell you that it's a kind of like infinite double jumps, which seems to me like the key thing here.
Well, I think it was a bug that sort of got turned into a feature.
Yeah. Who was it? Was it Callum? Was it you who called this Flappy Miner?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Because most of this game is spent flying upwards into platforms rather than standing on them.
I quite like the way that those controls have disappeared now. So
yeah, that is quite
just a little subtle thing.
Good.
Looks very nice.
Yeah. So there's no real explanation of what the goal is. I'm guessing just collect gems.
Yeah.
Also, the ladders are. So I did play this in the expo as well, and the ladders really go against this mechanic because you sort of get stuck on them.
That's odd, isn't it? You'd think there'd be. You want to have something else which kind of works with that mechanic as opposed to fighting it.
I think we're seeing the symptoms here of it being a bug rather than necessarily a strict feature.
So something which dampens or accelerates the double jump, something that flips your direction. I think one of the Flappy Birds claims we had last time did that.
So the other thing is, I got to the end of the level, I had some gems which gave me 60 points.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure if there's an incentive to like collect all of the gems and then leave, or whether I could just collect one gem and go to the next level, and then one gem and go to the next level, and so on.
So the goal is really unclear.
I think it's just get gems, get points.
I like the little things like the menus that pop up. They're really nice. They're very consistent.
That's it. It's all nicely put together and polished. They've chosen their
little music track. Simple use of music, but it's there. The pickup on noise on the gems is strangely delayed. But
I like the little lighting effects as well from the lanterns and around the miner.
So they did mention when I spoke to them in the expo, they actually wanted it to be a lot darker, so those lanterns would be sort of even more like little points of light in the dark.
Oh man, I'm trying to imagine this darker, and it's just falling onto spikes.
It's that one with the barrels there. That gets me every time.
Right.
Because I always think you can sit on top of the barrel, and you can't.
Oh, so you just fall through the barrel?
Yep, onto the spikes.
Yeah, that's deceptive. Also seems a little bit harsh that you die when you hit the side of the spikes.
Yeah.
So obviously this is a procedural generation game. So what do they say about their procedural generation in their
Just that they used the algorithm apparently used in the original Spelunky game, and they generate a solution path from the start room to the end room, and then add a bunch of extra rooms on it randomly, making sure they're all connected.
So the problem with that is it makes a playable level, but it makes no effort to make a fun level. And so, have they said anything about thinking about difficulty, for example, or getting any kind of pacing from the procedural generation?
They have not, I'm afraid.
Okay.
You go, see, I've gotten to the end of the level with 10 points.
Yeah.
But now I'm just back at the start of the level again.
Yeah.
Should we start talking about our categories?
Yeah, okay. So I think the first thing to talk about is presentation. So I do think it looks nice. It's a really nicely presented game.
Yeah.
It's all consistent. So it's got music and sound effects. The lighting, you're right, is really nice.
It's even got those little UI screens like this one that work very well with the general aesthetic of the game.
Yeah. And
It'd be nice if there was a high score so I could see what I'm trying to beat.
well, I mean, this is part of the problem about there not actually being a real purpose.
Yeah. But we'll get onto that.
So, okay.
I think that partly ties into the information design though as well, right?
Actually, yeah, good point.
So about the information design. So you've got, what's that in the top right hand corner? That little.
I think that's just a menu. So if I. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is also quite a nice looking thing. So all you've got is the little tutorial thing that dies after a while, and you've got the score, but there's no contextualization of the score. There's no explanation of how the things you are doing
I think also.
map to the score.
I'd also perhaps slightly criticise the generous use of scenery. Things like the barrels, or there's chests around, or there's these giant crystals.
Also, I'm stuck.
Originally playing this, I kind of thought that...
There's no route.
Oh dear. Look, try to get through there.
But it's not entirely clear which of the things can be interacted with and which ones can't.
No. You're right. You are blocked.
How have they...
I think if I go back to... So, the route is almost always downwards.
Yeah.
I think what's happened is... this wall here probably hasn't gotten taken away correctly.
Yes.
Looks that way, doesn't it?
Because you can see, like, they've got all these like sort of square tiles of rooms.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah, we'll just...
Yeah, you can...
So it's not quite correctly sanitised, but I suppose. Again, we'll get on to that bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. They kind of...
So this is one that always threw me. I thought, a chest, and then...
Yeah, it's just a decoration.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question as to whether... Because obviously, they're not going to have time to add all that stuff in for a prototype. But it's an interesting question if you can't do anything with it, whether you should actually put it in at all.
Particularly something like a chest. Like, players are sort of like
drawn
hardwired to go and get to the chest, right?
So one option might be to grey it out into the background and make it very clearly part of the scenery, rather than sort of an item that's as vibrant and bright as the actual collectibles.
Because it's certainly good. It's set dressing in terms of maybe you'd find it in a mine, but it's something you expect the
I
players
think this
to
is the problem though when you're working with existing asset packs, right? Because what you really want is you want kind of stuff that's actually part of the background.
Yeah.
So you want kind of, I don't know, stalactites and stalagmites and carvings in the wall and cave paintings and stuff like that. But if you don't have that in your asset pack, but what you do have is chests and barrels, then it's a tricky one.
So it is one of the things we sort of talk about in that we're not necessarily judging the quality of the assets themselves, but the way in which you choose them and use them.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of a good example of that.
Yeah. So, it looks good, but I'd almost put that down as you were talking about information problems. So I think the non-contextualization of the score, both in terms of not knowing what you're aiming for, but also not knowing what the gems do. Right? So there's no these gems are different colours, but what does that mean? As far as I can tell, it doesn't mean anything. So there's lots of stuff going on that looks like it means something, but doesn't. And I think that's somewhat of a problem. And
part of that's scale, because it's only a small prototype after all.
Yeah.
But you've got to think carefully about what.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't hurt to sort of say, okay, well, we could have all of the different coloured gems, but I'm only going to use the red ones for this, just to sort of ensure nobody gets confused.
So I mean, I think so. The information design, I think, is a little bit of an issue. But the graphics are really nice. They're consistent. Other than the thing we mentioned about those assets are used well, the audio's all there. So I would say that actually the graphics and the audio are up in the excellent category. Right? So that's consistent, appealing graphics, good use of audio.
Do you only bank your score at the end of a level? Is that?
Final score 0. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
I've only just noticed that.
Give it a go. But probably the information is maybe that's only at the satisfactory level. The key information is shown.
Yeah.
I mean, you might even argue that some of the information is missing. So that may even be a little bit generous. So I would argue that probably the two things, if one is excellent and one is satisfactory, that probably gives us a presentation of good.
Yeah, I think that seems fair.
That sounds reasonable. What about the gameplay?
The control scheme is a little bit odd with the sort of like constant double jumping, and like you say, that's not super well explained, but it works okay. So, I mean, some of it's a little bit frustrating when you clip the side of those spikes, but Yeah, it's, I don't know, unorthodox might be the word, but it works okay.
Yeah. I think so. Again, I think part of the problem is that, and you said this is because it was that bug feature problem, right? Mm-hmm. So they haven't made anything of it. So it's like, so all the traps and all the layout is such that a traditional platformer with a single double jump would work, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas they haven't. So just a simple example, there are no spikes on the roofs of things, right? Which is obviously a thing that is going to be a problem if you're effectively double jumping and kind of fly awkwardly through this space, right? So it's not that anything here is problematic, it's just that there's things that they could have done to take advantage of that mechanic that they haven't done.
Yeah, so to what extent do you feel like the play is meaningful, Tom?
Well, so this is the thing, it sort of ties back into that scoring system. There is sort of an element of, I could go for this extra gem, or I could just go straight to the end of the level, but I mean, why not go straight to the end of the level?
Why not go to the end of the level and just pick up the easy gems along the way and ignore all the hard ones? I suppose in that
also,
sense,
I think
that's another. I've seen that come up before. That's another procedural generation bug.
So satisfactory for gameplay would be a set of mechanics with usable controls that leads to some meaningful play, and it kind of feels there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
you can definitely navigate around, but you're getting mixed messages about what you should be doing, and
I think it is meaningful as well to try and get one of these gems. It's just when you piece it into the larger whole.
I think there's no incentive to go for more tricky ones. You just, like you say, run to the exit and then.
Yeah. So that'll be satisfactory for gameplay. Bugs. Now this is an interesting one. We've kind of noticed a few minor things as we've gone through. So you have a little glitch in the procedural generation, but I think we'll cover that later.
Yeah. So otherwise, it's just occasional sort of, like the sort of scoring bugs, but like very minor.
Yeah. So you've got, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything else seems to be working okay.
So I suppose you've got the question of whether you count the indefinitely flying upwards as a bug or not.
No, I don't.
But I think at this point,
I think they've clearly embraced that.
I mean, you couldn't play the game without it, right? So
yeah. No.
I found another one.
Are you stuck now?
Yes, I am.
In some ways, it's also a little bit of a cheat because it means that your procedural generation has to be less complex because you know that people can basically fly, so you don't have to worry about jumping routes and things. But it seems to work well.
I mean, it is remarkably polished, to be honest.
And the complexity is decent, isn't it? I mean, there's a fair bit going on.
There we go.
So a good would be there are only minor bugs and these are uncommon and the level of complexity is reasonable, and I kind of feel that's where it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so the brief. So this is a procedural generation game, so we've heard a little bit about what they said about the procedural generation.
So for this part we're looking at how well does the sort of procedural generation technically work?
Yeah. So we saw a glitch, but in general it seems to produce playable levels.
Yeah, there's a couple of problems where we've noticed like it will spawn spikes on the join between rooms, sort of making a particular level impossible, but mostly, so I think the way they've done it is they have sort of some pre-built sort of tiles of rooms and then just join them together. Mm-hmm. So
which is fine.
The internals themselves are sort of designed, but you get this sort of mix of routes or playthroughs that you won't have seen before.
So
at the same time, I think it might be quite nice the fact that you see rooms that you have seen before. You start to get a bit of familiarity with which puzzles you can do and which ones you can't.
That's a good point. Yeah. So where would that?
So to be good, it has to be appropriate procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules designed to enhance or personalise play. And I think the problem here is that the rules they've got in the procedural generation don't quite get to that level.
Yeah.
Right?
So
they allow play,
but if they had something where the pacing increased as you got further down, or sort of the difficulty of the tiles they would like
you
generate
start off
increased.
with fewer spikes. It's something simple like the beginning of the level has fewer spikes in it than the last part of the level, or the more spikes that are generated, the more likely there are to be gems in that region, or you need to have some kind of rules in place.
So, with respect to talking about how it integrates with gameplay, is that in the meaningfulness section? Is that?
Yes, I think so.
Right.
So in this case, it's just
Like,
how
does
well
that-
does the
algorithm
generation work?
Yeah.
And it clearly works, but it doesn't.
It could be
It
more
doesn't
complex.
do anything to support the gameplay. I think it makes gameplay possible. So for me, that probably limits it to the sort of satisfactory level. So straightforward procedural generation incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play. So, I mean, arguably, it's even below that.
It said simple procedural generation that in the majority of cases allows play sounds fairly accurate.
I mean, for me, it's a bit better than that because it almost always enables play, right? So it feels to me that it is more up to the satisfactory.
So is it a 60 or is it a 55?
Is it a satisfactory or is it halfway between the two?
Yeah. So the difference is that the passes in the majority of cases enables play, and satisfactory is that it incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play. So I think they have rules here. I think the fact that they have the path planning probably puts them at the satisfactory level.
Yeah,
right. Because it's not that they have some random generation that mostly is okay.
Yeah, if it was a case of every tile always had 4 exits and then they just put them all together, then that would be simple.
So I think it's got the satisfactory level. They clearly thought it through, but they just could have done more to kind of integrate it. So meaningfulness. Now you touched on this. So meaningfulness is essentially it's kind of this question of is this a gimmick? So
would this game work without the innovation?
Yeah, would it be better without the innovation? Right?
Wow, that's
so what do we think?
So they've written in the what you call it report that the main purpose of this innovation is to allow for repeated play.
Yeah, and I've said a couple of times that procedural generation always has this get out of jail free card, right? Which is that it's replayable. But the point is that why would you want to replay it? What is it that is your game designed in such a way that replaying it?
Like, does it give you a very different experience each time?
And it's and therefore it's it's useful to have a different experience because not all games are designed that way. So what do we think in this case?
So I think part of the challenge is once you. I'm not sure it does, honestly, because the motivation for actually playing through the game in the first place is fairly unclear.
Yeah,
it is getting points, but getting points itself is not necessarily motivation.
So it's one of the risky things about procedural generation is if you've got a high score based on collecting something that is procedurally generated, then your score is in a lot of cases at the whims of the random number generator.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. I'm just like, can I get down here?
Unless what you're doing is you're very carefully balancing how difficult they are to get in those cases, and then you could.
So they might actually be doing that. I'm not sure whether they generate a fixed number of gems in each level. Because if they're ensuring that, then you've still got the problem of some are going to be harder to get to than others. But
it does feel to me like so from a development point of view, I can understand the sense of having procedural generation because you don't have to design all the levels. But from assuming you had infinite level designers, it would clearly be better, I think, to have design levels.
Especially since I think once you reach sort of the second time, the sort of second, not room, but set of rooms, you've sort of seen most of the rooms, and it does become sort of the same challenge over and over again.
So I described this to someone in the expo as the kind of the sort of brown problem. So if you get a bunch of colours and you mix them together, you get brown.
Right.
And if you get a different bunch of colours and you mix them together, you get brown again. And that's the problem with these type of procedural generation games. You get, you have 8 or 9 different things which have been generated in sort of on a distribution. Mm-hmm. And yes, they're all very slightly different, but they're all kind of brown. And actually what makes stuff interesting is difference.
I was going to say, Spelunky has a lot of variety in the items you can find and things like that. So, again, obviously, Spelunky's a much bigger game than we'd be expecting somebody to make. Yeah. But it varies the gameplay sufficiently that you can play it again and again.
So if you think about meaningfulness, so satisfactory is a straightforward design that in small ways takes advantage of the innovation, where the innovation in some part adds to the gameplay and where some limitations are avoided. Right? Whereas a pass would be a simplistic design or one that does not take advantage of the innovation, though the innovation does not detract from the experience, and limitations through, although present, do not prevent meaningful play. So for me, it's absolutely a pass, right?
It's definitely at least a pass.
The innovation doesn't detract from the experience at all. The question is, to what extent does it take advantage of what it's doing?
I think it might be pushing towards a satisfactory.
I might have to agree, simply because I don't think the format of the game, where you have to collect as many gems as possible, would be possible without the procedural generation. You could author all of these levels, but if you did, it would be a different game. It would be collect all 3 gems on this level, and then all 3 gems on this level, or something like that.
So you think the replayability thing in this case actually does?
A little bit.
I think it makes it possible. I wouldn't necessarily it makes it takes full advantage of that.
So I think I agree with you. I think that
I almost certainly would not have played this game for this long if it was just a case of if the first room was always the same.
Yeah. So for me, the thing that makes it satisfactory is that there aren't that many limitations present. It's just, again, it's not that there's anything wrong. It's that there's a lack of taking advantage of what's on offer.
Yeah.
Right? So we would say satisfactory for that too.
Okay.
And then what about their feedback? So what did they say? What was the feedback they got, and how did they respond to it?
So they've given 3 items of feedback. They've said that adding the score is an easy way to make the game have a purpose, but adding a sense of discovery is better. So they focused on just collection.
Yeah. So they've obviously had that feedback about it feels aimless, but I'm not sure they've addressed it. So what else did they mention?
They had the feedback to make the rooms work together, and what they did was they made the rooms interconnected.
Okay.
What were they doing before then?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
And they said they had the feedback to lock items behind stage progression to give a sense of progression as the game goes on.
Yeah.
And
they didn't have enough time to do it. Yeah. So that's part of the issue. So I'm a bit more sympathetic towards the time one, but the score one feels like they didn't quite grasp what was being told to them.
They've clearly made some attempt to address it, but I'm not quite sure it's been effective, and I'm not sure how
they
much
have a
of
score.
Yes.
So satisfactory would be feedback was articulated. Some changes have been attempted with partial success. And pass would be feedback was not well articulated, but some changes have been made with limited success. I kind of feel it's almost more of a pass, maybe sort of halfway between the two.
Especially since we sort of said make the rooms work together, some rooms are interconnected. We don't quite know what that means. No. So I think that is not necessarily well articulated.
So if we put that down maybe as a pass?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should move on.
Okie dokie.
So this is one I was quite looking forward to having a look at, but didn't get round to in the end.
Because neither did I. And it's a 2-player game.
Oh, that works.
Okay.
We couldn't have done this deliberately, could we?
Let's try out Mind Swap.
Should we go through the tutorial first?
That seems like a wise idea.
Okay.
Welcome to Mind Swap.
Hey, voice acting.
Try moving around using the keys I'm displaying now.
Okay, so I'm arrows and K and
Excellent.
Hang on.
Now try shooting.
oh, that's
Orange. You go first.
how do I shoot? Oh, you use G.
What do you use to shoot your opponent?
It's not
Now
telling me.
orange.
Hello.
Try that again.
Haha.
Return.
All right, this is all right. So I've got that, and then come back.
Nope.
Come back.
Hit me if you can.
So
Right.
what is? I'm a bit lost. What is going on here?
So when you shoot, you swap places and inventory
Okay.
with the other person.
So I quite like the fact that the tutorial is making us do it twice to make sure we understand what's going on.
Yeah.
You mind
Swap.
Use this key or
I really like the
Now the objective
the
of the
voice
game
acting
is
they've
to
got.
gain access to those portals behind you. First, you need
This
keys
one I'm
to
guessing.
take down those shields.
Okay.
The first of which is to both your right hand side.
So that bit's a bit tricky because what if we've moved?
Yes.
It's also
Now try to find the other 2 keys and beat your opponent to the portal.
Wait, am I?
Be warned.
I've got your key.
Your opponent can pick up your keys. You'll need to mind swap with them to be able to use it.
So I have a key, and I...
Keep an eye on your HUD to see the remaining gates and the keys you each have.
So this is a little bit of tell don't show going on here.
So you've just picked up. So you just picked up 2 keys.
Yes.
Oh, now you've got lots of keys. I don't know which one you. Oh, you're blue anyway. So you've got 2 of your keys and 1 of Callum's keys.
Your ass back.
Oh, and you'll notice the keys have different numbers of teeth.
So that was not explained in the tutorial.
It was not, but the key you have to do the keys in a certain order. No, leave me alone. Go away.
Oh, I can spam. Oh yes.
No.
Wait, no.
Yes.
So, hang on. So how did you get your last? Oh, you picked up.
So I picked up my last key, and I also had one of Callum's. But yeah, that sort of illustrates one problem that I thought might occur with this, which is what's to stop you just sitting next to the portal and spamming the hell out of fire?
Alright, let's give it a whirl and we'll see what happens.
Best of 5.
So this is now the procedurally generated bit, I think.
Aha, so I was going to say, the procedural generation seems kind of limited to what colour the ground is.
I'm just going to chase you.
Okay.
And they've got these kind of little bits in here.
So I think they've tried to hide the keys.
So I'm trying to understand this mind swap mechanic. Right? So you swap with the other person in space, that's fine.
And you get their inventory.
But you only have one lot of inventory at the time, so how are you supposed to open up?
So for example, if I take Callum's key like this, the only way he can win is by swapping with me.
Yeah.
And then...
But then does he need all 3 keys at once to get out?
No.
So, okay.
But you need them in a certain order, so this one's got 3 teeth, which is either the outside or the inside.
So you have to pick up key 1 and then what do you do with it?
You can unlock one of the shields around the portal.
So you need...
So you need to do that first before you... If Callum swapped with you now to get the 3rd key...
Yeah. So he could swap to me now, and then go pick up the other 2 keys.
So how do you unlock the shield around the portal?
See, this is... I've just noticed something that's slightly not great, which is if I pick up these keys, and then he swaps with me, I've just handed him the game. Whereas if I'd have just left it on the ground there, that would have been better.
Equally...
Well, you could argue that just grabbing one of them might be quite useful.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think this is quite a big map as well, isn't it?
Are those yellow dots where the keys...
Yes, they
How
are.
do you use the keys?
You just bump into the portal.
Right. So before Callum swaps with you, he needs to find the portal and bump into it, right?
What? I need... Okay, so key 3 doesn't open shield 3, it opens...
Well, yeah, you want to open shield 1.
Okay,
we both have each other's first key, so...
Oh, shit.
So we have to...
Can I open your shield? Oh, yeah, I can.
Oh, brilliant, thanks.
Okay, so it's also suffering from the, I cannot remember the name for it now. We can't depress enough keys at once to make this work.
What are you talking about? I seem to be doing fine.
Oh, yeah, that's it. The keys are absolutely ghosting on us. They're ghosting on me, anyway.
Ghosting on you?
Really?
Yes. This keyboard is not anti-ghosting, so I'm finding sometimes I'll push a key and it will not register the key.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I don't know if that's the... Did you just get back here?
No.
Oh, there we go.
Peace out.
There you go. So now you've unlocked your one, and now you need yours back. Okay.
So I have...
Why can't I open...
Because I have the keys that you need. And you have the keys that I...
I've got key 1.
I've already done key 1.
Oh, right.
Yoink.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, key 1 was open.
How was I supposed to win that, actually?
Because he opened your first key, right? Okay. So now I actually understand what's going on.
Hang on, so where are the keys now? Are they not yellow?
So can you see the...
Yeah, so I'm just not going to pick up your keys.
Do the keys appear on the map?
So they did last time. Why have they not this time?
I wonder if they... I think they take time to appear.
Actually, that's not a terrible design decision. That's sort of... It gives you this sort of early sort of... both running in different directions trying to find the keys, but...
Yeah.
I think maybe there might be too much running in different directions trying to find the key, though.
Yeah. There's also the... Okay, so... The other thing is the procedural generation does not feel super meaningful here. It generates like some structures, but so what?
Well, let's go through it, shall we?
Yeah. So presentation.
So yeah, presentation. So what do we think?
Yeah, it's actually pretty nicely put together. Like like the music's nice. The voice acting was nice. It gave me a little. It put me in mind of Subnautica actually.
I agree.
Yes.
I think it's rather good. You've got sound effects going on. Information design is interesting. There's a lot of information on the screen. I think they could have done a lot more to make it more obvious.
So I need to swap with you before you get there. Yeah.
but then it does show you the state of your portal in the top, as well as physically on the map, so you can see what you need.
Press that key.
Okay, we've discovered a new tactic.
Yeah, the bouncy bullets are a bit of a pain, aren't they?
So I'll just run into one of yours and then we'll swap.
So let me ask you, because you guys are playing. So in terms of the information about what keys you have and what the state of your portal is, how much of that is easy for you to take in?
It's not too bad actually. The thing is, it's the information design isn't too bad as far as I can tell because there's so little going on in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So I can happily just look at the mini-map and sort of navigate using that and sort of glance over at the keys. The only time I need to look at the main screen is when I'm being shot at, and that's a bit sort of just frantic-y.
Oh, there's a bunch of keys. So yeah, so I kind of like, there's a lot going on with the information design, but I think it kind of works. So for me, so good is clear. Key information is shown clearly. Graphics are consistent. Appropriate use of audio. I think definitely is that. Excellent would be key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, and good use of audio. So what do we think? Do you think it would rate up as an excellent?
So this is a problem with multiplayer games. I'm too busy trying to beat Callum to...
Yeah. In terms of information design, so I'm not sure whether it comes into gameplay or not. I feel like the delay in putting the keys up makes the information design a little...
I think that's a good move, to be honest.
I'll explain why, I think, when we talk more about gameplay, to be honest. Okay. I think it's okay.
Yeah. It's I don't know, they've got... It's a full game.
Yeah, it is.
It's got a lot going on, they've done a lot, and...
let's just leave it up.
And it's relatively plain, but that's fine, because it's consistent. But all the elements of presentation are there. The information is all shown.
Yeah.
So for me, so the difference with excellent should be consistent and appealing graphics, right? And good use of audio, whereas good is graphics are consistent and appropriate use of audio. So, but then again, they've got this kind of pumping track that kind of builds tension. That works well.
All the noises.
And actually, the look and feel of it is kind of fun. Actually,
I think about it. Now I'm not playing. I think I'd actually agree with you there, Dave, because actually the key information is shown clearly, and actually my criticisms are how it interacts with the gameplay. So,
I think the thing I'm actually complaining about is the thing that would have made it prize-worthy, which is novel but clear ways of showing key information. I kind of feel that you've got this interesting piece of information to show people, which is what keys do you have, what keys your opponent has, and what's the status of your portal. And you could have done something more imaginatively about how you represented that. But actually, what they've got works, and it works fine. It's all consistent. I think presentation might be at the excellent level.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So.
I think they are conveying a lot of information, but they are managing to do it.
Yeah, it's there. Gameplay. So the fact that you were kind of absorbed in it kind of says a lot, right?
I think that might be more to do with me and Tom, though.
No, it's I think it's so the whole swapping places with the person you've shot is an interesting mechanic. I'm not sure I like it, but I like the fact that they sort of said, okay, this is a different thing. We'll just
But it's the keys that make it work, right? Because the fact that you have a reason to do it. It's not just a throwaway thing. You do it when you know that you have to get the key, and the keys have to be used in order. Therefore, there's
sort of strategy in the sort of actually, I'm not going to pick up this other key I need because they've got the first key, so I'm going to have to swap with them, and I don't want to give them an advantage.
So I think that works really nicely.
I'm not sure I'm convinced by the initial part of the gameplay, though, where you can't see the keys. Okay. I think for a game that's meant to be competitive and about interaction, there's an awful lot of wandering around the map just trying to find keys.
Okay.
I think...
almost, if they'd colour-coded those dots as well, it might have impacted strategy in that I could deliberately plan to go and pick up yours, or something like that.
And this is what I mean about not making as much of the information design as possible, because the keys, are ordered. I mean, I have to say that the prongs on the keys is a nice little touch there.
Yeah.
The teeth, right?
So
but,
we only know that's important because they told us in the expo. That's not actually mentioned.
But you can kind of figure it out. But also the placement tells you what they are.
Yeah.
But they could have done more to actually put that on the map, or to have something where it was revealed to you on the map at certain points.
So I am very curious as to whether they tested a bunch of different sort of ways of doing it. So whether they did sort of have these being color coded and then decided to change it, or whether this is just the first thing they went with and then stuck with it.
But there's things they could also have done. So they could have said when the keys appear, the key which is the next key that you need to get pulses.
Yeah.
Right. So that would have given you a choice about: do you go to pick up your key? Do you go and pick up one of your opponent's keys, which is not their next key? So it kind of, So there's things that they could have done, I think, to play around with it. But I'd have been interested to see what they did in their playtesting too. What about the controls?
I think the controls are okay. You're never going to get perfect controls, 2 people on 1 keyboard.
Yeah, the sort of the amount at which you rotate is a little bit sort of jumpy, and it makes aiming a little bit tricky. But again, I think that's just a limitation of we're both using the same keyboard.
And they do keep getting jammed occasionally, so I keep losing the ability to turn and aim. I don't know if that's the game or the keyboard.
Okay. So I think we have to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in that case.
But if we have like a pair of controls while doing this, I think this would be like really, really playable.
Yeah. Okay. So again, good would be a set of complementary mechanics, smooth usable controls, and meaningful play. So I think it's definitely gets that.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Excellent would be a wide set of complementary mechanics, intuitive and smooth usable controls, and enjoyable and meaningful play. So I think you are. It's fun, right? You're getting sucked into it. The mechanics, they've got different things going on. They've got the collection, they've got the unlocking, they've got the swapping, obviously.
Just the ordering of keys and combined with like the mind swap is sort of
So again, I think this probably manages up to the excellent level. The gameplay. Callum has doubts.
It's just that mismatch between the key hunting and the mind swapping.
Yeah, you are.
But they are linked though, in that you mind swap in order to get the keys.
But I think what he means is we spent most of the game sort of on opposite sides of the map, and then there's just sort of like 3 seconds at the end where we're both going for this portal and sort of somebody's essentially playing goalie and saying, "Can you get past? Can you get past?"
There is sort of one key mind swap moment, and then it's back to roaming the map freely again.
So, but you have to unlock. Is that because I thought you had to unlock the portal in order though?
You do, but
so if somebody else grabs your first key, you're forced to go and get them. You can't progress until you've done that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so why is that not happening?
I don't know, but we both seem to sort of. I don't know whether it's a quirk of sort of the design or just the way in which we're playing it, but we sort of seem to just go and get all of the keys on the map, and then sort of work out, okay, do I need to mind swap with you first or get to the portal first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something there. I mean,
maybe even like a smaller arena, just slightly, would sort of like put us in closer contention.
But to me, I still think you're pointing out some of the niggles that don't kind of make it right at the very top. I think it's
I think
okay.
So, bugs. Any issues?
I know that I've noticed.
No, it seems to work.
No, I think it's okay.
So, I would say excellent is there are no bugs despite the complexity of the game, and prizeworthy is there are no bugs despite the significant complexity of the game. I wouldn't necessarily say this has significant complexity, but it's definitely complex. I would say it's excellent again.
I think so.
Yeah,
they've delivered a really nice game. Right, okay, so that's the good stuff. Now we get on to the things I think are a bit more problematic. So this is procedural generation.
Yes.
So what they have said is that the game map's comprised of grass and sand with the ruins, which are the walls that you're using to hide behind, and the keys are hidden in the ruins. The grass and sand are generated using Perlin noise, which gives you this kind of natural-looking pattern of terrain, and there is a central circle of grass to prevent the players from being trapped at the start. Right? But the the train doesn't do anything, does it? It's just
it's just colours. As far as I can tell.
The locations of the ruins are generated by downsampling the same pearly noise texture and taking the values below a second threshold. And then they have to figure out to make sure all the ruins and the keys are accessible, and they use a maze generation algorithm to create a maze the size of the whole map. This ensures that all maze blocks are connected. The walls outside the ruin areas are then removed.
So they generate a maze covering the entirety of the map, and then if there's grass there, they remove it.
And then they remove the edges. Okay, so that kind of makes sense.
Feels like it might be a bit of overkill, but
okay,
it works.
Okay, so I mean, it does work. It's interesting though, isn't it? It's like to what level is it significant to the gameplay, I suppose?
And I guess that's more meaningfulness, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is
all right. Well, let's talk about the effectiveness then. So,
so satisfactory would be straightforward procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play.
Yeah.
Does it enable meaningful play?
Well,
do the ruins have a meaningful impact?
Well, hang on. No, I think that it does because it
has an impact.
They've basically got these ruins, and this allows you to have different layouts, and they're playable. And the rules are, they've done the maze generation algorithm, chop the outsides out, so you can always get into all the rooms.
Weirdly, if instead of sort of sand with some ruins on top, if they just sort of said, these are like solid like mesas or just rocks that you can't pass through, I think that'd make a more interesting map than.
Yeah.
If they had just dropped, I think part of the thing is if they dropped, say, a room.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have made a difference with a room with a key in it than if it was a maze. And I think to that extent, the mazes aren't adding.
Again, I think we're on the wrong thing here.
It's like,
given that what they were trying to do, how well does their generation algorithm actually generate it?
It does.
And I would say that it at least does a satisfactory job.
Right.
Right? It's straightforward, incorporates some effective rules, and enables meaningful play. Right? What I'm not sure it does is do anything that enhances or personalises play.
I would say it certainly doesn't do that. Honestly,
it's just there.
So I'm still not sure about the satisfactory. I think if there's very little distinguishing it from if it was just a flat grass field.
Yeah. So
there is the random location of the keys. I think that is important.
That is a good point.
And they've placed them in the ruins, and they've also, don't forget the ruins are the only things that deflect bullets, right? So you get this this ability to shoot bullets and bounce them into mazes. Yeah. I think it's okay. I think I think what we're struggling with is the fact that the procedural generation seems almost tangential to play.
It's very detached from.
And as you said, if these were kind of just rocky blocks, and the maze was at the level of the level, right? Then I think it would work just as well, actually, and probably would be better. We'd probably be playing at that macro level. But for me, that comes into the other bit. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that what they've decided to do is to say, no, there are ruins. The ruins are in these areas. They've generated the areas randomly. Those are the brown bits. And then they've used a maze generation algorithm to create the spaces for the mazes on those bits. So and it works okay.
The maze itself does work.
And I don't think it's not the majority of cases it allows play. It enables play, enables you to play in this space. The problem is it does nothing more than that, right? So for me, I think that the procedural generation here is satisfactory.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Right, meaningfulness.
Right.
So, satisfactory for this would be a straightforward design in some small way takes advantage of the innovation, where the innovation is some part adds to the gameplay and where some limitations are avoided. Right?
So, I guess this is the thing. This is why it's sort of satisfactory in terms of the play itself.
Yeah.
It does have an impact on play because you have to navigate these things to get the keys, and you can hide behind them while someone's being shot at. But why is it important that it's procedurally generated rather than just a fixed level every time?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if it was a fixed level and the keys moved every time, that would be.
So what do they say? So they said it's a two-player game. In multiplayer games, knowledge of the maps adds the advantage for more experienced players. A procedure-generated map, this element of the advantage is removed, which somewhat levels the playing field between different experience levels.
But the thing is, the terrain in this isn't meaningful. It's not in when you're playing Halo and you've got the sniper nest or whatever.
Yes,
it's really the only thing that changes is the location of the keys.
All right. Well, they have a backup strategy, a backup argument, and you can guess what it is. The game has multiple rounds. If the map were the same each round, it would be repetitive and boring. So the procedure generation makes each round a unique challenge, adding interest. So in other words, they're saying...
But I don't think the procedure generation does change. I don't think it really impacts the play that much.
No, it feels quite like you said,
I didn't really notice these mazes changing because they don't have any impact on the way we play.
Yeah.
I think the only way we've used the mazes at all is occasionally as cover to avoid bullets, in which case a wall would have done just fine.
Yeah.
So the problem here is actually that the procedural generation, it doesn't actually have enough impact on play.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an intrinsic part of the game enough.
So
I mean, it works fine.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with it in a way. I don't think it's harming the game. But
it's barely affecting it at all, one way or the other.
Yeah, it's almost,
so one of the things I think we spoke about in one of the sort of design labs was one of the ideas they were considering was having just a large maze where you can sort of shoot over the walls but you can't pass through them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would have had a lot more impact.
I think so.
It might have been very frustrating to play, but...
So a pass for this would be a simplistic design or one that does not take advantage of innovation, where the innovation does not detract from the experience and limitations, although present, do not prevent meaningful play.
And I think it's probably that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's... The meaningful play comes from the interesting mechanic that they've designed, not procedural generation.
Yeah. So that makes the actual meaningfulness a pass. I think I agree with that. Feedback. So what they said was, so in the lab they were advised to use a PropGen library rather than building from scratch, to consider new mechanics to make the generation of mind swapping more interesting and ensure the maps were possible but not boring. So they responded by using the Unity implementation of Potholy noise, and they added the mechanic of keys and fields to add importance to the procedure-generated terrain and provide a reason to mind swap. They were then advised to balance the difficulty between players, and they did that by making sure the keys were at similar distances from the players. So it seems that there is some balance going on that they've responded to.
So when they say they generated the fields... Is that sort of like just the areas of the ruins, or?
I think. Yeah, keys and fields. Yeah, and provide a reason to mind swap. So one of the key things here is that the interesting thing is that they added the mechanic of keys and fields to add importance to the procedure-generated terrain, and. The interesting thing for me is that the keys give meaning to the mind swap mechanic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure they give much meaning to the
terrain. Yeah.
Right? So it feels to me that adding the keys in has added a really important element to the game. It's made the game interesting.
What would it be without the keys?
Yeah.
It'd just be get to the portal.
Yeah.
I don't know. While shooting each other, presumably.
Why?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not clear about that. So satisfactory would be feedback was articulated and some changes have been attempted with partial success. And a pass would be feedback was not well articulated, but some changes have been made with limited success. And it kind of feels maybe halfway between the two. They've not. I don't think they've articulated that feedback very well.
Yeah.
But they have made changes that have had a positive impact on the game. But it's not clear to me that they understand why that's happened.
The changes they've made have definitely improved the game, but it hasn't necessarily improved the way they've implemented the procedural innovation.
So I think that's halfway sort of between a pass and a satisfactory.
Alright.
Okay. Fun game though.
Yeah.
I like what they were doing there, and the mechanic's nice.
I think the core concept behind it is excellent. It's just taking full advantage of it.
Okay, so our next game is Grove of Mists.
Okay.
Right, do you want to do the house play?
Yeah, let's do the house play. So, nicely crediting all their assets. They've used a sort of nice, thematic title screen.
Yeah, I like that. I like the background.
How to play. Use the arrow keys to move the Inquisitor through the Grove of Mists.
Okay, so somewhat missing the whole tutorial lessons, but at least it's here.
Powerful crystal. Collect the crystal to move to the next stage of your journey. Make sure to avoid trees.
And other forest obstacles.
Look for the woodsman's axe hidden around the forest. These can help you cut down the trees.
Okay.
Remember as much of the path as you can as you move. You never know when you will need to retrace your steps.
Okay.
Let's start with level 1.
Level 1. Ah, it's this one.
Nice little wind sound effect.
It's collected.
You just saw the crystal over there, right? Up there? Yeah, so we're all the way around the outside.
Where it needs to go.
Bop, bop.
So you have to get the axe to cut the trees down.
Yeah. So it's essentially find the key to go in the oddly shaped block.
The character kind of reminds me of the Cookie Monster. It's just got the dustbin on the head.
Cookie Monster doesn't live in the dustbin. You're thinking of Oscar. Oscar.
Okay, it's Oscar then.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that in a long time, okay?
Neither have I.
Oh, there's the axe.
Okay. It's also
So
axe collected equals false. That's
Yes. True.
true.
What's there? So I kind of like the fact that there's that little element to it. Got to collect something to progress past the trees in the maze.
Yeah. So there isn't a whole heap of gameplay here, is the thing.
But it's a maze navigation game, right?
It is.
So, and I spoke to the expert about this, and we talked about the fog of war, which they've interpreted really literally. But that's okay. I think originally they wanted to have just a maze exploration game where you generated a maze and then you wandered around, and it was like, well, part of the problem with that is that you can either see the whole maze, in which case you just plan your route and get out, or you can't see the whole maze, and then what happens is that everything ends up looking the same, so you just get completely lost in where you are. Right? So they came up with the fog of war thing as a way of managing that. And we talked about different ways that you might be able to help people orientate themselves within the maze. And originally, I think we talked about colours and textures and things, but what they've done is they've just gone for a clearly delineated outside, so you can just see where you are. So levels, they just get bigger each time, right?
Yeah, so it's not really level 1, 2 and 3, it's sort of easy, medium and hard almost.
Yeah. So you wander around, you've got to find the axe lets you cut down the trees let you get to the gem.
However, there is nothing guaranteeing you actually need the axe, or there will be any trees.
Is there not?
It's entirely possible to spawn, basically right next to the gem. Not exactly next to the gem, because they always spawn you in the middle, and they always spawn the gem on the outside, but it's entirely possible there will be a route right to it. Which is a bit of a disappointment, really.
Yeah.
Because procedural generation is all about using rules to make a level, and it's totally possible to have a rule that says there must be at least one tree between you and the exit.
Yes. Especially if you're using a pathfinding process, so that'd be relatively straightforward. But what you do is you place the axe, then you place the tree.
So they may have. So that they always validate that you can get to the axe before you have to get to a tree.
Right.
Or rather, yeah, the axe is always. It's never on the wrong side of a tree.
Yeah.
But it's just there's never necessarily a tree before the exit.
I mean, it's a simple little game. I kind of like this a little bit. I mean, the problem with maze games is that they're never that interesting. Like, that's the problem. I mean, as a mechanic, it's just, or as a challenge, it's not something that interests me very much. But for what it is, it's fairly well executed, I think.
Yeah, so one conversation Tom and I have fairly frequently is, when is a maze a game?
Yeah.
And I think you have to not be able to solve it using just depth first search.
It's a good point. That's what I should be doing right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let's go through the criteria and see how they stack up. So, in terms of the presentation,
it's quite nicely presented. You've got the sort of atmospheric sort of wind noise, slightly cartoony fog, but
I really like the wind noise.
Yeah,
it's an alternative to the music. I think it gives the game a sort of barren feel, which maybe doesn't quite gel, but I do like it all the same.
Given that they're going for like the Grove of Mists or whatever it was, it really fits that.
It does.
It definitely feels like we're lost.
There's not a huge amount of like different graphics. You've got clouds, trees, and axes.
No, but it works. It's consistent. Simple, but effective.
It's got a certain charm to it.
And the audio works. Did you get sound effects when you pick stuff up?
I think you get one when you cut down a tree.
So you've got some of that going on.
There we go.
What about information design? Axe collected equals true.
It's
there.
It's
it would have been nicer to have incorporated it.
Even just like just like a little symbol of an axe, like sort of traditional video game kind of.
I think if we're talking about information, then we've got to talk about the fact that the fog of war a little bit as well, and they've restricted your information on the map.
Sure,
that works.
Yeah, if they hadn't have included that, it would be
that for me. That's kind of, again, it's one of those things which turns it into a game, becomes an exploration game. I think one of the problems. So you get two things with exploration games, right? You got one thing with exploration games, one thing with maze games. Maze games is, how do you stop people being disorientated? And they have kind of managed that, I think. You've got to know sort of roughly where you are. And they've done that by having an outside. It would have been interesting to play a really big version of the maze to see whether that became, at some point does it become impossible because you don't have those bearings.
So we spoke to them in the expo about that, and they said when they were sort of developing it, they did try generating ludicrously huge mazes, but because every maze size you can always see where the edge is. And so they deliberately tried to keep the edge always on the screen, so you had some sort of
but the exploration thing is that there has to be, what's the payoff for exploring, right? There has to be something that happens as a result of exploring.
I always think of exploration games as almost just discovery games. You want to discover interesting things as the game goes on.
Yes. And it's difficult to pull off.
So if we were going back to sort of the core dynamics, I'd say this isn't so much exploration as race to the end, right? The goal is to get through the level as fast as possible. You're not really exploring the maze. You're trying to get to the end.
In fact, in an ideal scenario, you don't explore the maze, right?
So actually, if that's the case, the thing they're missing here is some kind of timer or some kind of feeling of impetus that you need to get on with it. Which would make it feel a lot more pressured and a lot more like a game.
But that's also a dangerous thing to include with mazes as well, because sometimes you can just get absolutely...
Especially procedural generated mazes, right?
Yeah.
Because that just gives you more stuff that the procedural generator has to get right. So the point is here, it's a simple procedural generation that works well because it doesn't need to be complex. Right? Okay, so in terms of presentation then, what would it be? Satisfactory would be key information is shown, consistent graphics, some audio effects or music. And good would be key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and appropriate use of audio. It's just about how clear is the information.
I think it's definitely at least good. I think partly it's an issue of complexity again, that there isn't that much information to show.
No. But then, like you said, you could argue that the fog of war is part of the information.
Oh no, I definitely bundle that in.
So are we happy with the good?
Yeah, I think so.
So next one is good. So next one is gameplay.
I think this might be sort of what lets it down a bit. There isn't a huge amount.
No. So here, satisfactory would be a set of mechanics and usable controls and some meaningful play. So the mechanics here are obviously navigating the maze, collecting the axe, cutting down trees. That's it.
So it has a few mechanics.
Yeah. So pass is few or inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls, and limited meaningful play.
I think
So I think it hits two of those. So it has few mechanics and it has limited meaningful play. But it does have usable controls. So that probably puts it between the pass and satisfactory.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's just lacking that meaningful play element. That's the thing.
Yeah. Bugs. Anything?
No real sort of bugs. I mentioned earlier, like sometimes you get a route straight to the gem without having to really explore the maze, but I think that's more. We'll talk about that when we talk about the procedural generation.
Yes. So again, the problem here then is the complexity, right? So satisfactory, there are some infrequent serious bugs or frequent minor bugs. Good, there are only minor bugs and these are uncommon. And excellent, there are no bugs despite the complexity of the game. So I don't think it can get up to excellent because of that. Good, is there only minor bugs and these are uncommon.
There we go.
I don't think it has any bugs, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think it has to be at that level because of the lack of complexity. So it's kind of like it works. There's no bugs. It works well, but it's very simple. There's not an awful lot of interaction happening. And you've got the fog of war, that generation that works really well. And we'll talk about the procedural. So I think for bugs it's good.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay, so procedural generation then. So we've got. Where are we? So satisfactory will be straightforward procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play.
I don't know. It's just generating a maze.
No, I mean it does have some effective rules in the sense that it has the axe and the tree ordering.
It always makes sure you can get to the axe before. Yeah, the axe is never locked behind the tree.
It always allows play.
So satisfactory will be straightforward procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play. Right? And good would be incorporates effective rules to enhance or personalise play. So I don't think it's got anything there to enhance play. But so it does have some effective rules.
Part of the question is how much does the axe and the trees add to gameplay?
Yeah.
Or is it just another sort of, like essentially a second exit point that you have to get first? Sometimes. So
look, a pass would be some simple procedural generation that in the majority of cases allows play. So it feels better than that, right? It is simple procedural generation, but it always seems to work. And it does have some rules in it. Yeah. So maybe what we do is we put it between pass and satisfactory, in that it incorporates some effective rules that enable meaningful play, but they're really simple things.
Yeah. Okay.
So. Okay, meaningfulness. What did they say about their?
So they said. Essentially replayability, along with the idea that having a constant maze size makes the game easy to learn but difficult to master, encouraging players to keep on returning to improve their skill at solving maze puzzles. They said without the procedural generation, trying to do any sort of random maps would be... Yeah.
So this is... sort of goes back to what we were saying about the first game. It's like, okay, replayability, but why would I want to replay this? What's different about one maze than another maze?
Yeah.
There's not a different way to play the game, you're just doing exactly the same thing every time.
And I think it's particularly true for this game because you essentially get the exact experience when you replay.
I mean, I think games where there's a really fun set of mechanics that you just enjoy doing, then you can get away with it to a certain extent. So you get this a lot in kind of grinding and RPG games where if it's just fun to fight things, and it's fun to stretch your muscles and kind of do those things, then you can get away with generating sort of more repetitive battles.
That works for games like Super Hot and things, where just the core gameplay is fun.
Yeah, and even things like Diablo, this is what they do, right? It is just kind of fun to mow down monsters in interesting ways and watch your character develop. But again, here it's lacking that motivation.
So the argument you could make is perhaps it's designed for a younger audience.
Yeah.
Like as just a sort of like introduction to in the same way they put mazes on the back of cereal boxes. It's like a thing to keep you occupied sort of once a day.
And that would work, but then you'd still need some goal. Yeah. So let's say, for example, that in this maze there were 3 animals that you had to rescue, right? And what you do is when you find the animal, you get a big graphic that comes up and kind of like a fanfare noise, and and the animal appears on the left-hand side, and you kind of stack them all up, right? And it's about kind of you make it about finding friends, or you make it about characters, and you do something with it, right?
Yeah, you don't make an inquisitor in the Grove of Mists.
Yes,
But
but you know what I mean. So you have some kind of payoff for exploration.
I think it comes back to our core dynamics again to some extent. The core dynamic of the game should be something that makes it exciting to play and enjoyable.
So it doesn't have those exploration elements, and because it doesn't have a timer, it's not really a race to the end either. So it's an opportunity.
And I think it's just stuck in this core dynamic limbo, which means that it's not no real one big strength.
So let's take it from. So a pass, for example, would be a simplistic design that does not take advantage of innovation, where the innovation does not detract from the experience, and the limitations do not prevent meaningful play. So in other words, if it was neutral, it's like, you can play it, it's fine, the fact it's procedurally generated, that's a pass.
It sounds like the case. I think it doesn't do anything to the game.
And it's because there's no mechanics to take advantage of the repetitive play. Right? That's the issue. So it becomes a pass.
Yeah.
And feedback. So what did they say the feedback was they got?
So they said they wanted to provide players with a suitable challenge to make the game more enjoyable.
Yeah.
That was one of the feedback. Simply following a series of paths that appear on screen around the map is not compelling. So that was where the Fog of War came in to add that challenge to the game. With an emphasis on memory retention skills.
Yeah.
So the other idea was to include navigational aids to help the player easily identify the location of the maze with respect to the board.
Yeah.
They made sure one of the board edges was always visible, so you could always position yourself within the maze instead of getting completely lost.
Yeah. So okay. So that's a kind of a key thing they have done. Mm-hmm. So feedback was articulated. Some changes have been made with partial success. That's unsatisfactory. It feels kind of about there. They clearly listened to and made sure that was part of the game.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair.
Okay, I think we should move on. I think that was our final game for this batch.
It was indeed.
So we will see you again for our next video.